And welcome back to the OperaWire podcast. This is David Salazar with my co-host Francisco Salazar, and we're really excited today because we're going to get a chance to speak with the director and producer behind the Oscar-nominated film Viva Verdi. But before we get to our conversation with Yvonne and Christine, we are going to show you a little bit of the trailer. Okay, so we are really happy today to introduce Yvonne Russo, director of Viva Verdi, and Christine Lamont, who is a producer of the film. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank
Yes,
you, Francesco.
First
it's
of
a
all,
please go ahead.
first of all, congratulations on this documentary, and congratulations also on being able and receiving that Oscar nomination this past January. And I know you guys were at the ceremony as well. I guess I wanted to start by talking about that experience and what was that like to be able to receive that news and be able to get this documentary out to a much bigger audience than it had originally had.
Well, for me, I'm not an Academy member. It was quite overwhelming. I mean, Christine's an Academy member, so she has a whole different perspective on it. But for me, it was really a dream come true. It was an out of body experience the entire moment we were there. But it was wonderful being recognized from the Academy and for Nicholas Pike and Anna Maria for Sweet Dreams of Joy. To be, amongst such esteemed fellow artists was really a dream because we were in a category that isn't often recognized, within this genre. And so we were up against K-pop Demon Hunters and Train Dreams and Sinners. And so it was like when they had announced Viva Verdi being nominated, it was like, wow, like we were just screaming and so excited. And it was just really a dream come true.
I guess for me, because I come from the studio, I was a marketing executive at Universal Disney and Orion. I had brought many films to the awards. I'd gotten there to this place, and to be able to bring our film to the Oscars was it was exciting. It was out of body experience, actually, even though I'd been there many times. So I was really thrilled, happy, and it was, for Yvonne and I, 13 years ago, we had started this with really with a thought that it could be a blueprint, and that we wanted people to understand and know about this beautiful home, the humanity that Verdi brought to the world. And so for us to have it on this big stage, the world stage, was the most exciting and exhilarating thing it could be.
So this documentary is about what Verdi called his greatest opera. Um, can you walk us through where the project started? And you said it happened 13 years ago. I was actually at the screening you guys did at Mount Sinai a couple of weeks ago that Fred Plotkin organized with them. And I know that you guys shot it several years ago, and then in the interim a lot of things have changed. Some of the singers and the artists that are in the documentary have passed. What was the journey of creating that film, and then also I imagine it was a very lengthy editing process afterwards as well.
Yes, yes. So this is twofold. So I learned about Casa Verde when I was working for National Geographic as a series producer, and we were covering a story on Milan and its hidden treasures. And so I was following a photographer. His name's David Yoder, and he was covering, shooting pictures for the magazine, and I was on the TV side. And he said, hey, he's like, let me take you to this place. I want to take you to Casa Verde. And he told me about it. He said, there's no other place like it in the world. And I was like, okay, this sounds amazing. Let's go. So we went, and I didn't know what to expect. And so when I saw it for the first time, I was blown away because it's this magnificent neo Gothic style mansion where it's like, there's housing all these wonderful musicians. But when you walk inside the place, it's like sounds of music are just permeating the hallways, the window, like every room. And there was a distinctive voice. It was the voice of a soprano, someone I thought that was young. I was thinking, oh, it must be like a 20 something, whatever. So came in, and all of a sudden I follow the voice, and it is Lena Vasta. She's featured in our film, and she's probably like in her 80s. You'll never know her age because she won't tell you, but she was in her 80s, and she was training a young Japanese student, and it was her voice that I was hearing, and I was so blown away because I thought, wow, you don't see this intergenerational exchange. How cool is that? And so, long story short, like I kept walking through, I saw music therapy happening. There were all these things going on in the house. And I said, this is a bigger story. I'm like, this is a larger story, one that would require like a feature length documentary, not a 30-minute segment. I said, I want to come back and tell a story. So cut through, after my assignment at Nat Geo, I was like, what am I going to do next? And I'm like, it's time to bring, Casa Verde's story to life. And I knew I needed a really good producer, especially one that's Italian and stellar. So I contacted Christine Lamont, who I had known and worked with in 1994, right?
97.
Yeah, or 97, and in the 90s, because that was another film. And so I contacted Christine, and you can tell the story.
Yeah. So I was living in Rome with my husband, and I get a text from Yvonne, I think it was Facebook, and she said, I don't know, we need to connect. I have this great project, and I think you might like it. And she said, Yvonne is a Buddhist and a Ramne Rinpoche chanter. And she said in her chanting, they said, my name came up 3 times. And I said, great, what did they say? And she said that you have to be involved in this. I said, she said it's Verdi, it's opera in Milan, it's shooting in Italy. I said, that's it. You don't have to say anything else. I'm there. Let's do it. Because I had this karma with Verdi, especially. I worked with Franco Zeffirelli when I was at Universal on La Traviata. And so, and I grew up with my grandmother playing Verdi and Puccini, where she made her sauce, right? And so I had that in my DNA. But then, to have Verdi and Yvonne saying, come on, let's do something with this incredible legacy. I always thought he was a humanitarian before anything else. So it was exciting and a dream come true, really.
And then another part of this is funding, so for the first phase of it, we paid for ourselves. I'm like, we need to go out and ask permission to the board of Casa Verde and see, can we do this? And also observe the house and just learn about it, really. And so we funded ourselves. We started the development process. We received permission. We made fast friends with, the guests that were in the house, and they all wanted to share their stories. We were fortunate enough to shoot just a little bit of development footage, and eventually came back to the US, and we started an Indiegogo campaign. That was kind of our first efforts in finding funding, and we raised enough. And in addition, a Broadway producer, Ron Simons from Simon Says Entertainment, learned about the Indiegogo campaign and sent over a text and said, can I give you this much? I really want to be a part of this. I can see it. And sure enough, that was like the first, amount of money, production funds that we had to actually like hire a cinematographer and really get going. And that was in what?
It
That
was 2014. 2014.
was 2014.
Yeah, we raised the funds in 2013, and 2014 went, yeah, we went 3 times.
Yeah.
to
Over 7
shoot.
years.
Over 7
What-
years, yeah.
What was it, the experience of actually shooting? Because obviously it's a documentary. You're speaking with live subjects. Probably some of them were more open, or I don't know how their dynamics were with you, in terms of being open about the stories they wanted to tell. I don't know if you had already, like, in your initial moments there had already picked out like, okay, I really want to focus and kind of deepen my relationship with. How was that deciding, okay, which are the artists that I'm going to spend the most time with? And also, once you had made that decision and had that, like, what was the process like? Because I can imagine you needed to have, I don't know how much of a crew you had. You imagine you need a lot of flexibility in and out of the space.
We
Yeah.
had Italians too that helped us. We had Federico Rodelli, who was a PA at the time and ended up to be our man on the ground and became a co-producer on the film. But I think that they were so open and eager to tell their stories, as we said, that it just came naturally and easily, and they trusted us. You know, Yvonne and I both embraced them, embraced the house, and they saw our passion for creating something that would really reflect Verdi's humanity and his legacy home. And so I think that was part of it.
Yeah, and it was, once we had money to hire our cinematographer, Jacek Laskis from Los Angeles, he was our main cinematographer, and we had, all of our crew and everybody together. We really set up these key interviews with the guest of the house, the ones that were, I mean, everybody's dynamic, but there were some that really stood out. And I said, would you like to be interviewed? They said yes. And so it was really spending time learning about their stories, who they are, what their world was like in history, when, what were they like in their prime, how they transitioned and moved to the house, what their life is like now, and then really just kind of understanding their essences and having that come out. And then so once we had that, and then we started to follow them around the house. It was really just learning about their dynamics and how they work together, how they live such joyful lives, but how they wake up every day and
Mm,
what are their routines? Because at that stage of life, it's all about routine. You have to eat a certain way, you've got to exercise a certain way, you need to go for your walk. Like everything is regimented. And so it was learning about the inner workings of the house. And then after shooting, we'd come back and then it was stringing out, just kind of stringing out the interviews, finding those core beats and moments, and then knowing we would follow up on these stories and then travel back again and go follow them some more. Some of the characters, some of them actually they changed. They went from being fully active into another side of the house, which is a hospice side, or
mm,
something may have happened to them where the Parkinson's increased or things changed. So it's like we couldn't, carry on with them anymore. So we ended up focusing on our other main characters. But
right.
we had so many of them, and they were all they were still involved, like even in music therapy,
Mhm.
they were all still in the movie, which was great. We just didn't get to like the meat of their stories.
Right. And during COVID, we had to edit. We were in Los Angeles. I was here. Yvonne was in New York, and Federico was in Perma. So we had this was going on Zoom. We're grateful to Zoom and all the other technology that allowed us to continue. That was really a gift and important.
That's amazing. How long did the documentary take to from shooting to post-production? How long did it take to complete? And as you were filming, what were some of the, I guess, hurdles or changes that you discovered as it was going through as you guys were filming?
I mean, for us, because we raised the money independently, we own the movie, so we decided to raise the money so that way we can get this out into the world to the demographic that needs to see it.
Mhm.
And also we want, so we wanted that freedom. And with that, the hardest thing is raising money for a
Mm,
documentary. So it was grants, and during the pandemic, it was crucial because we had all this footage, and yet the residents are waiting for us. They're like, wanna see the movie, and we're like, "How are we gonna do this?" And we have an entire team, like, just, going, "What's happening?" So we knew we couldn't give up. So we used Zoom to raise money. We pitched
mhm,
as if we treated
Mhm.
everything as if the world was still open, And we reached out to those partners and foundations and organizations and scheduled meetings and pitched on Zoom. There was a beauty about being, having your concentration in one area where you don't have to travel anywhere and you could just focus on the work. And so we were able to edit on Zoom just on our own, even without the financing, because we had to keep going. But it was, that was probably the hardest part. But then, we had like Regina Scully came in, Artemis Rising, Ruth Ann Harnish, and others. And it was a true blessing. It's like, if you build it, they will come. That was a model we were using. Just go. We have to keep going. And
Yeah.
that's how it happened.
We have great executive producers on our film. They've been wonderful. James Costa and Jamie Wolf. And there's been so many wonderful people that have really supported us along each of our campaigns as well, getting the film done. And then as we segued into festivals and our Oscar campaign, they were right there with us, step and step. It was really wonderful, generous and kind.
The festival circuit, you guys had this very interesting circuit. You guys started it, believe Woodstock, was that the first one? And then
Yeah.
you guys did all these like very interesting regional film festivals, including Woods Hole, which my brother and I actually premiered our first film there.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so I found that to be such a wonderful path. What was the reaction at the festival circuit, and how did you guys how did you guys find the clear path? Because I think for certain films, it's always a really interesting path, also a challenge to not really knowing where's the right place.
I have been in the business for a long time and done a lot of festivals as well as releases. And so I have a lot of friends at festivals. So Mira at Woodstock is a dear friend. And actually, I didn't even call her. I just submitted the film. And it was the last night. I remember the next day she called me. She said, Christine, this film is extraordinary. I want it. I said, fantastic. Let's do it. So
I
that
didn't think we were
started.
ready. Yeah, and it was funny because Christine was like, "We have to make the Woodstock deadline." And I was like, I go, "What?" I said, "How is that even possible?" I'm like, "I don't know how we're gonna do that because we were editing, and you know how it is as a filmmaker, you're
Mhm.
color correcting and music and everything." And I was like, "Oh my God."
I know. I
Like,
remember
"Okay,
the
we're
night
gonna
with,
put it." And that's one thing she does is she'll put the pedal to the metal, and I'm the one I'm like, "I need time to think." And she's
no,
like,
that's
"Let's
what
go, let's go." And I'm like, "Ah, okay, let's go." And did
that's
it.
what producers do. That's why we work really well. Aries, Gemini, it works perfectly. Trust me. So I remember that night because I was working with Federico Conforti. He was helping me submit the film.
He's our
And
editor, one of our editors.
yeah, one of our editors, great editor. I mean, brilliant, brilliant. And so I said, I don't know if we should do this. I said, Yvonne's really not, it's not 100%. He said, if we get in, she'll be thrilled. If we don't, she'll never know. So don't worry, just do it. And he said, push the button. So I did. It was really funny, but it was really the beginning. That kind of energy, when you put a family together and you love and trust the process, it works. It just does. It was magic all the way. I think
Yeah.
we got
And
such
it
great people, great
yeah.
energy.
And it was word of mouth too. I think what I've learned also is that the programmers all talk.
Mhm.
So they
Yeah.
all know each other, and I come from the Sundance Labs in Tribeca, and I've been around film festivals, but little did I know that there was like this whole other inner working. So they connect, and we had encore screenings because we were
Yeah.
so packed. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, we have to give you another show, like another screening." And we were like, "Okay, great." And we would see people like lined around the corner. It was like, wow, like that is so cool. And it was a demographic that you don't see out very often, like together in this way. And so I think that word of mouth spread. It went to Hot Docs, it went to Boulder, Santa
And then
Barbara,
Claudia Pugh was
Claudia.
such a great supporter and champion as well out of
Yes.
Santa Barbara. And she got us, she immediately called Mendocino and all these other festivals. And
Cascadia.
that was great. Really good. We
Mhm.
had great
Yes.
festivals and great support from them. Even Woods Hole, they did a dinner movie in a dinner, right, or something.
Yes, dinner and a
Yes.
movie. And who was
Yeah,
it?
dinner and a
Tim
movie. Yeah,
Tim Miller, he gave us our first review.
Oh,
that's
wow.
right. Yeah.
Yes, at Woods Hole, he gave us our first review, and I just remember thinking, "You're the only so far, you're the only one who's really written something about this." I'm like,
Mhm.
"He, like, quote you?" And he said, "Absolutely." And so,
Yeah.
again, it's sort of like one thing leads to another, and we're always very open, and, yeah, I've been very blessed, so it's been
Yeah.
great.
So I mean, I imagine that you had an opportunity to screen it for the residents at Casa Verdi. What was the reaction to seeing their lives on screen in that way?
You wanna talk about that, Christine?
Well,
We
it was such bittersweet because here are these larger than life, incredible people that were on the screen, the big screen, and most of them had passed. But there was their family in the room who were so thrilled and excited to be there, to see this, to witness this. And there they were with, these memories already that were created that we showed through archival, through just the footage that we used. So it was very bittersweet, but such joy. Everyone was so thrilled and happy with the way it turned out. The Casa Verde, I'm sure that I'm sure they're inundated with tourists right now because people just want to go in there. They want to see it. They want to feel it. They want to hear it. So I think it was a good PSA for them as well.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, like I said, I saw it at the Mount Sinai event, and that was great because it was after the Oscars. So it was beautiful to see that the film is still has a life beyond the awards campaign and beyond, I guess, the traditional distribution, right? What is next for the project? Where are you seeing other kinds of initiatives like that Mount Sinai screening? What other life would you love for the film to continue to have?
I mean, we have a dimensional life. Like, that's what's really cool about it because we are screening at Jacob Burns Theater in May. We have a request there. We have a request in Georgia. We have a request for senior living centers, the villages in this fall. We have a number of those. And then we also have a potential invitation to the UN. So there's a lot. There's a lot that we're doing and we're planning with Impact, so that's really exciting. And then obviously, we will continue with the streamer and, eventually end up, I think, um, on, transactional video as well. So that way everybody will have an opportunity to view
Yeah,
it.
we're also at the Verdi Festival in
Oh,
October
yes.
in
Yeah.
Paris. So
Yes.
they're very thrilled about that. I can't wait.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
amazing. That festival's amazing. I was
Yeah.
there a few years ago, and they do such a wonderful job. I was actually that was my next question is how how is the opera world received this documentary? Because obviously, like it's about Verdi, one of the great composers of opera, and of course you have Ana Maria Martinez as well, who did the song. So how has that reaction been?
Well,
Thanks.
Matthew Principe too, our cultural producer, he is working I mean, he's an opera expert, and he used to work at the Met, and so he's on board, and he's now presenting Viva Verdi to various opera houses, and the first one I think we're screening at is in Philadelphia,
Right.
right, Christine? And that's
Yes.
in yeah,
Yeah.
so it will be at opera houses as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes,
Mhm.
we have this great plan, and it's incredible because Yvonne and I that was our intention. Honestly, our first week there, we said the world's got to know about this, and what an incredible thing to have this as a blueprint for retirement homes, but also to keep the vitality of opera and passing the torch to a younger generation and all those things. And I think it's time. It's just timely right now that we need an uplifting story. We need music. We need to respect and understand an older generation and what they can give, what they provide.
It's
Yes.
those pearls of wisdom.
Yeah, right.
I think that was actually I would be remiss if I didn't say that some of the most impactful scenes in the film were precisely those moments of mentorship, which I thought were so inspiring. And it's also incredible to see that the Casa Verde has that program where they have resident young artists so that they can interact with these
Oh, yeah.
legends and pass on that. Like it's this beautiful like active transference and cooperation and collaboration of generations, and I think that actually really stood out to me, and I thought that was a really powerful, because we don't, when we think about retirement homes or things like that, you don't think about that it's unfortunately there's this idea of like, we're just, moving on, right? But this, what you showed in the documentary, and I thought was so extraordinary, and it's just a reminder of, we need to keep that channel open, that connection between different generations, because my generation and the next generation can learn so much from our parents, our grandparents, the older generations, the artists that came before us. It's so important to keep that connection, and the documentary does an extraordinary job of really cementing and reminding us of that. So I wanted to make mention of that as well.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
It was impactful.
I really love also Yvonne was really crazy about Harry Connick. And so she had this idea. I just love that that's in there, the sweetheart segment, where love is
Yes.
section, and that's just as important as everything else.
It was
Yeah.
beautiful to see an older couple talking about proudly about how they just walk on the streets and hold hands, things
Yeah.
like that. That just, again, things that people tend to forget. People tend to forget that even when you grow older, you still feel, you still think, you still create. And again, the documentary does an extraordinary job of reminding us, like, it doesn't end at the third act. This third act is just another beginning, and it is beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. That's the heartbeat. And that is definitely the heartbeat of the film. Yeah. And music is really a key to all of that. Music and creativity, because as studies show, your endorphins are heightened and released, and there's serotonin and oxytocin, like everything. It's just, and that's what we all need. It doesn't matter what age you are. When you're younger, you just make more of it naturally. But when you get
Right.
older, I think because there's so much sitting and maybe not as much communication, but with music and at Casa Verde, music is a universal language. That's the way they communicate. And so to see them so vibrant and being able to share their wisdom with the younger generation, like that was, to me, was just like so cool. And like, we need that. And that's
Yep.
also part of our plan, is like creating blueprints and creating a workbook that's going to be paired with Viva Verdi, that will go to senior living centers, places like Mount Sinai for music and medicine, arts in medicine. So all that is in the works right now.
Plus, we call this the Verdi cocktail. There's endorphins that are released through music and intergenerational.
Yeah.
We're branding it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I keep interrupting.
I want to touch on working with Ana Maria Martinez, who was part of this documentary as well. I got to speak to her a little bit about the song and about that. So I just want to know what your experience was about with having her on the project.
That I have to say, that's all Nicholas Pike. So he created Sweet Dreams of Joy when he watched a proof of concept that we had worked on.
Mhm.
And Christine, and you can tell this story, Christine, because
Yeah.
you met Nick
Yeah.
first.
Right. I was at an Academy event. I'm an Academy member for a long time. And Alan Rich, who is actually one of our EPs now, introduced me to Nick. He told Nick, I think Christine's got a project that you might really like. And so Nick came over and said, what do you have going? I said, oh, this great Verdi project. Just like when Yvonne pitched it to me, I said, it's Verdi. It's an older generation of musicians and opera singers. And he also said, sounds incredible. So he said, send me something. He got in touch with me and he said, send me something. And we had put together like an 11-minute string out. I sent him that and maybe our trailer that we used for Indiegogo. And honestly, a couple of days later, he sends me this song. And I listened to it and I called Yvonne. I said, Yvonne, Nick wrote a song. Now, this does not happen unless you commission someone or hire someone. But I think he was so moved. And I have an email that he wrote that he said he was so moved by Verdi's humanity and what he had done in creating this, that he just was inspired to write this song. And we looked at each other. We said, this is like unbelievable. And
I
so we
couldn't
hired
believe
him.
it, because I was like, wait a minute. so Christine sends me a little video that he put together, this
Yeah.
video with this music. And I'm like, "He just did this on his own? He
Yeah.
composed this?" I was like, "Wow." Like, I mean, I've been working as a filmmaker for 29 years, and I've never had somebody just volunteer and just do that without even meeting the director, just, like, doing it. And I was like, "That is amazing." And I was really moved by it, and I said, yes, absolutely. So we hired Nick. And even at the time, I wasn't sure where the song would actually fit because it was a source song. And it's so beautiful that it needed to have its own breath and moment. So when we were editing and editing and editing, we were right down to the wire. It was like the perfect opportunity was during the transition of, getting them out in a reflection sort of mood. And it was like, yes, this fits. So yeah, it's cool. It was a great process.
So I want to know a little bit about your experience with the opera before this adventure. Where were you? How was your interactions with opera, and how did this project, open you or open you up to new things about opera or it's grow your opera journey?
Well,
Well,
experience. I mean, I've only taken like music appreciation classes, and I think my first opera was in high school, really. I went to the La Jolla Playhouse, I believe, and that was like the first time. And I went by myself because nobody wanted to go with me. But later on in life, living in New York and going to the Met is something that I love to do with friends who love opera. And for Verdi, it was like Ernani and some of his early works. And I appreciate the art form, all of it. And it became clear when the Met started to subtitle. Subtitle because I was like, okay, now I really know what this is about. Um, yeah, but, for me, Verdi, I love Verdi. I just love him. I love everything about him. I've read all his letters. In the process of this, I researched him tremendously. And I read, Verdi Without Vengeance, and again, all his letters and several books about Verdi. At estate sales, I would always look for anything I can find in opera, and I actually found some of the old albums, the original albums from the Met. So I would lean back, I would listen to them, and I would read the lyrics because they have them in Italian and in English. So I would just read them all and just sort of like be with Verdi. And so I just really appreciate everything about him. And then in the process of making this, what I really loved was when we went to Sant'Agatha, Villa Verdi, and went to his summer home. And I love old books. And so we were in his room, and he had all these incredible books and all his librettos, right? And he had this one that was art in nature. And I was like, wow, this is so cool because I'm also a nature lover. But at his house, he had a leaved teepee in the backyard. So it was all like a leaf teepee, really beautiful. And basically, they had said that he would go there in the mornings and sit and listen to nature, to the birds, to the insects. And that's how he created some of his greatest compositions. So,
Well,
yeah.
you could slowly.
yes, for me, as I said, I grew up with my grandmother playing Verdi and Puccini, especially them, on these red vinyl albums. I don't know if either one of you knew about those, but was Mario Lanza and Enrico Caruso and those opera singers. So I understood about that. And then, as I said, when I was at university, I was even in New York going to the Met all the time, but I was lucky because Jim Katz, who I consider an incredible industry, a futurist. Actually, he started Universal Classics that turned into Orion Classics, where I worked, and then it turned into Sony Classics. So, in any case, nobody really was into opera, and I said, "I'll take it." So, I did most of the marketing on La Traviata, and I spent a lot of time with Franco Zeffirelli in America and in Italy. We adopted each other. It was perfect. He's so wonderful. It's so much fun. And imagine, this genius. And he really gave me a proper education. And that was remarkable. So to me, it was like this portal opened though when Yvonne called me through her chanting. This portal opened, and really we entered this world of this intimate world, Verdi's intimate world, and being at St. Agatha, especially as Yvonne said, he planted a tree after he completed every opera. So there's all these different trees on the property. It was just magic for me, for all of us. It was a blessing. It was a gift. It was, I don't know, it opens your soul in a way. It's just what Lena Vasta says, music, especially of all the arts. Our film is so philosophical. I love that about our film because these artists live with the arts and they think about it and they talk about it. They're obsessed with it. These young kids too. You see them walking arm in arm with these residents, and they're talking about music all the time on different levels. So when that happens for me, it's I'm a spiritual girl, and so is Yvonne. So it resonates for us on many different levels. And I learned about Verdi's Ah. Do you know about Verdi's Ah?
No.
So opera was written in 440 hertz
Yeah.
that he and Mozart wrote in 432. So all of his operas are in 432, and that is the universal sound. It's the amen, it's the om, it's all these sounds that resonate universally. So when you listen to his opera, I feel he's elevating everyone's spirit. He's elevating your soul, your mind. And that's why his music is so incredible. And that's why I am going to have him canonized. I'm going to the Pope and I'm going to see if we could get him canonized. He's saved so many lives. He's given us so much beauty in music that has elevated our lives in general. So I'm like, this is a dream for me. How incredible to be able to live with Verdi music. When you live with the studios and there's all kinds of films that you see thousands of times and you say, I can't see this one more time, but I can't not watch our film at every screening. I can't wait to see it again. I love our film so much. It's beautiful. It touches me every time in different places. So we're really proud that we're at this stage and able to share it with the world.
Just as you guys were talking, I'm just getting goosebumps. I remember going to Santa Agata and to Villa Verdi and being able to experience that entire journey of it. And also the Zeffirelli Traviata was one of our first introductions to opera. My dad showed us that film. And it's a film that I'll never forget, and I still have it in my mind.
Yeah.
And going to that, what is your favorite, and I think this is a very hard question to answer, favorite Verdi opera
Besides Casa Verdi. Besides Casa Verdi.
Well, for me, when I hear I Vespri, that's the one that does it to me. I totally fall apart like 100 times. So La Traviata for me is incredible, but I also love Tosca, Puccini's Tosca. So, I love opera, I love music, I love jazz, I love reggae, So, but I think it has to be La Traviata because I don't know, it means so much. But I also love Nabucco. Nabucco's incredible, right? So it's hard to say. It's like which is your favorite child, right?
I agree. I agree. I think Nabucco to me was, just that composition was so beautiful. And also it's epic. And it's it changed a nation.
Yeah.
And that's the power of his music.
Oh,
So that one really touched me. He has so many. He just has so many. I think
Yvonne and I saw Oberto, his first opera. We were at La Scala the first time, Yvonne. That was our first. We saw his first opera, Oberto, which I had never seen.
Yeah, I don't have a favorite Verdi opera, to be honest, because I've seen several of them, but I can't say that there's a favorite. Like I like all of them, but I love Traviata. I love watching La Traviata.
And what about for you, both of you? What is your favorite?
Go
I
ahead.
I I love my favorite. I love Don Carlo. It's one of those works that really moves me.
Mm,
Uh, every scene, obviously, thematically, politically, it's a very complex opera, and I love Il Trovatore because melodically that work is just perfect. But I just saw Traviata the other night,
mm,
and I was crying. So so there you
I
go.
know.
Yeah, for me, I mean, again, I second everything you guys said about how there's just so many incredible pieces of like just the art that this man created. For me, I really love the last two of Othello and Falstaff. I just think they're
Mm,
absolute just
yeah.
perfection. And to stay on theme, you know, he came out of retirement to create two of the greatest pieces of art ever created, right? And you know, everyone thought he was done because, you know, after Aida, you know, Wagner and that wave of musical evolution revolution kind of took over the world. And you know, they thought what he had done was like old fashioned and no longer in style, right? And Verismo was coming into play, and then he comes out of retirement and creates these two absolutely incredible pieces of music in his 80s. And reminds everyone that he is still the greatest composer, Italian composer in the world, one of the greatest ever. Yeah, and those two pieces just they just I don't know. There's just so much brilliance of craft, of experience, the drama, Falstaff. I've learned to really adore that piece, the more I
Mm,
listen to it, because there's just so much wit. There's so much. I mean, every single Verdi opera up to that point is in Falstaff in some way, and he's just poking fun at it or just having fun with it. It's just such a celebration of life and joy and everything. From a man who is known for creating the most tragic of works. Yeah, I just love those two pieces. Uh, yeah, I can't describe how much I love those two pieces, but I just adore them.
have you spoken Verdi with Fred Plotkin?
We have not. I
Because
mean, we
that's
know, yes, we know Fred, and Fred's a dear friend,
right.
and he's a great person. And we haven't actually had that kind of a conversation, uh, but we have obviously crossed paths so many times, and we see
Oh
him
yeah.
constantly at the opera. He's a wonderful, wonderful colleague,
Mm.
He is the best
great human.
Verdiani in the world. He knows so much about Verdi, and his love is so passionate. It's great to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and I know that he kind of put together a couple of those screenings, a few weeks ago, and it was the champion of the film, which he invited me to that screening. So you know,
Mm.
I had an opportunity to be there because he actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, you should come and check out the film." So I'm
Yeah.
very grateful for that opportunity. And you know, as we're kind of closing out the conversation, I would love to offer you both the opportunity to, you know, speak directly to our listeners, and if you know, tell them, you know, where they can watch the film, and you know, whatever you guys would love to leave us with.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you. This has been really great. I just say, you know, for all anybody out there that's creating, life is a visual manifestation of the invisible workings of the mind. You can do anything, you know, if you really set your mind to it. And Viva Verde is a testament to that because it took us so long. But it's also like, you know, we really listen to our intuition in the making of this. And when your art is an offering in that form, to me, it's also kind of a prayer, you know. And our wish is that this really is open for everybody around the world and they have an opportunity to see it. And if it sparks, um, you know, if it really moves you to help a generation of artists or even just elder seniors that need, you know, some assistance or need to be inspired to create, or to have the intergenerational exchange with younger students, like we did our job. You know, that's the thing. Is just keep on creating.
Mm. Also, that connection with music. I think music in the arts is so essential, and just to keep those channels open, it changes lives. Music is medicine. That's what we believe. So it's good medicine, good for you. So,
Yes.
and we're on Jolt.film.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, Yvonne and Christine. This was a real
Thank you.
pleasure for us as well. And
Thank
we want to
you.
thank all of our listeners out there. Thank you so much for being here with us today, for listening to this conversation. Go watch this film. It's absolutely beautiful. It's an incredibly well crafted documentary, very emotional, really important. really important. And we thank you so much for being here today.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And for all our listeners, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Threads, watch and listen to this podcast where you listen to your podcast, and go see Viva Verdi on jolt.film.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
and we'll
so
see you at
much.
the
Thank you
opera.
for all your support. We love OperaWire so much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.